What's going on, everyone? So today we're finally doing the video. I talked about it last week, and I had mentioned it a few times over the last several months of doing the channel. But today we're going to be doing the s30v video. So this is Let's Talk s30v. Now I wanted to do this video actually probably since around the time I started this channel, honestly even before, because something I've always noticed. S30v, I feel like there's not really many people out there that like S30v. They either love S30v or they just can't stand it. I'll be honest, I kind of lean more towards, I really like S30v. S30v is a steel. It was, honestly, maybe part of it's, I'm a little biased. It was the first real super steel that I ever got. It was actually in the paramilitary too. And I love the knife and the steel at the time compared to other stuff that I had. But even as I've gotten other steels, the higher end steels, if you will, ZDP 189, S110V, M4, etc., which better edge retention, other stuff, some more stainless. But S30V has still always remained a steel that I just really enjoy. I probably have 7 or 8 knives in it now. But it's something I've also, I can see what the people that don't like S30V, where they're coming from. The main reason just being the S30V is prone to chipping. And that's something I have experienced. I don't think it's something, I think some people either, maybe they just have bad luck if they have multiple S30V blades and they run into chipping a lot. I've only noticed it really on one of my knives, benchmade. Don't think it has anything to do with what benchmade's doing with it so much that they did anything wrong with it in the sense of heat treat. But just one thing I've always heard and kind of was led to believe a bit more is that benchmade, depending on steels, tend to run their steels a little bit harder. So for example, the S30V that they use. So in today's video, we're going to be doing our testing on the benchmade Freak. But from what I've read and understood is that they generally harden it up to around 60-ish, whereas from what I've seen with Spyderco, not that every place releases what they're hardening at, their trade secrets. But if you go to different forums, you can find get lists, I guess would be a good way to put it, where people who have had their knives tested, their Rockwell tested, the S30V from Spyderco is in that kind of 58 to 60 range. But I've seen more like 58, 59, and I guess in a sense maybe that 1 point isn't a massive difference, but just with what it is prone to, maybe that extra little bit makes it chip a little bit easier, if that is the case, that it's a bit harder. I have gotten chipping a couple times, like minor. Anytime I've gotten chipping has been minor chipping. I've never had a huge chunk of blade come out. It's always just been minor chipping on the apex. But I don't know. I think I might have said it was only on the benchmade, but I just thinking now, I have had it a couple times, like maybe 2 times, 3 at the most on the paramilitary, 2 in S30V. But anything that I have done that when it has happened, it hasn't just been from regular use. I cut a bunch of cardboard and then, I'm having, chips of the edge come out. It's if I run it into something, if I'm cutting cardboard and hit a staple, or if I'm cutting cardboard or something and, I end up hitting something after the cut. I used to do that sometimes with the benchmade Freak. That's when I had first started noticing the chipping, was when I was working at my last job doing the property maintenance. We had these huge metal dumpsters, and a lot of people would just, for the cardboard dumpster, would just, instead of putting it in the dumpster, just throw it on the ground next to it. But a lot of times they would just, instead of breaking down the cardboard, if they did even throw it in, would just be the huge boxes, and I'd have to break them down. And there have been times, and you're just standing next to it, you're just trying to fly through the cardboard. A few times I've usually be the belly tip area and end up just like whacking the metal from the dumpster. And I'm talking like minor chipping, but I've gotten chipping from that. Now, to remedy that, a few years after S30V came out. I believe it was 2001 S30 came out, and then, to be honest, I don't remember. I know it was a few years, at least 4, 5, 6 years after they came out with S35VN. And S35VN is very similar. It's basically S30V, for those of you that don't know, but it's supposed to be less apt to chip. And if you watch some like edge retention testing videos that people will do, say like Pete from Cedric and Ada, or Super Steel Steve, the edge retention will be close, but S30V generally will be a little bit higher. But S35VN is that it's not so much that it's softer, but they change some of the proportions of what they're putting in the steel a bit. And I think at the end, I think they add the niobium with it, or is it nitrogen? I forget. I should have looked at my Blade Steel app before, but they do have a few other little things in there. But it's to make it so it's less apt to chip, but you'd be more apt to have it roll. And I've never had any chipping on my S35 blades, because the one that we'll be testing up against is going to be the Code 4, which I also, for a good while at that same job, used that because I wanted to kind of see if there was a difference. And I had done the same thing. I, ting it off of the dumpster, and I would have a roll instead of a chip. But one thing I had noticed, though, was, I'd have to sharpen either way. But when I would sharpen, the S35 with the roll versus the S30 with the chip, it would take me about the same time to sharpen. And it wasn't, I didn't feel like I was removing any more or less material with one steel versus the other. It was just they were having a different effect from, damage, but they would still need to be sharpened. I still had to do the same amount of work to rectify either the chipping or the rolling. And I think that's kind of overall what the point of this video is, maybe for either people that don't like S30V, or people that maybe haven't experienced S30V but maybe are hesitant. Because any knife, it doesn't matter, any steel, you hit anything hard enough with it that it shouldn't be cutting, you're gonna have some edge damage. Now obviously, there are the variables. Different steels, will have more or less damage, but also what it is that you're coming in contact with that you shouldn't be, but also the amount of force that's going into it. So I'm going to try to, with doing this little test here, to see if I can, try to replicate that. And this is not going to be scientific at all. I tried to make it as even as possible, in that, all three of these blades, I actually just touched up on the stones. I wanted them to be, shaving sharp to where I would generally sharpen them to. I sharpened them all on the same stone, just used a single stone, just my King KDS 1000 stone. Brought them all to shaving edges, stropped them, and they're all, because another thing too is, also that edge geometry. It's funny because we actually have, one's a flat grind, one's a saber grind, or I'd say a high saber grind, and the other's a hollow grind. But, with checking all of them afterwards, they're all, as close as I can see with the naked eye, without actually having calipers to measure, the thickness behind the edge and all that. But they all look very, very similar. I have trouble trying to see any differences. Even with using the magnifying glass and holding them up against each other and checking, they all looked very, very similar. They're very close. And of course this is freehand, so I wasn't, using a guided system, so I don't know for sure what angle any of them are at. But whatever it is, they all have similar thickness behind the edge, and the same with the actual geometry, the angles on the bevel. Just to try to keep it as fair as possible. So pretty much what I want to test with this is, Benchmade's S30 and Spyderco's S30, and that's really kind of more for just my own. I'm just curious because I haven't, purposefully damaged them before. But I want to just kind of for my own. I'm just curious if, is it true that, Spyderco generally hardens things a little less with at least S30V versus Benchmade? Because like I said, it's something I've always heard, but, anybody can say anything. Even too, everything on this channel, everything I'm saying now is just opinion and theory, but I want to try and test this theory out. And, I thought it'd be something, you guys maybe bring along. And like I said, to maybe if anybody's on the fence about S30V or people that don't like it, maybe it'll get you to maybe reconsider it or maybe look at it differently. And then of course, like any other video, I mean, I would love to hear your guys' experiences. If you have any comments or questions, concerns, or whatever, if, you want me to try to test again. I mean, I'd even be willing to try this with other steels. We can do the same things or whatever. We can kind of make this the thing. Because along with testing it against, so I'm going to be testing against an old Waterstone of mine, which I really don't use anymore, except for just repairing, like, tips and stuff. Shit happens. You snap a tip. I've discussed a few times when I dropped my ZDP Endura and snapped the tip clean off, but this is what I use to reshape it. But then I also have this piece of metal. I'm not really sure what kind of metal it is. It's just mild steel. But this I actually use for what I'm doing axe heads. I pound out the handle when they're inside the axe head. If like what I did with I've discussed in other videos or shown that double bit axe project I did, and then this current axe project that I did a video about several months ago. And I just it's funny. I just haven't really gotten around to it as much as I would like. I did work on it a little bit the other day, a couple days ago. But I very much want to finish that axe soon, but I'll try and bring you guys along for that too. But this piece of metal here, I also want to try doing the same thing. So my idea is use the back half of each blade against the stone and see what happens, and then the front half of the blade against the metal corner. It's a nice sharp corner, has a little bit of an edge. Not like a sharp edge, but it comes to a 90 degree. So it'll be the most, the best chance of, maximum damage. But that we will do in a couple minutes. When that comes, I will just have to readjust the camera real quick. Then we'll bring it back and we'll take a look. We'll bust out the magnifying glass. I will do my absolute best to have it show up on the video. And we'll kind of just discuss that. I'm curious to see what's going to end up happening. I mean, I have an idea with, the S30 versus the S35. I have a feeling the S35 is just going to end up rolling, and the S30 will end up getting some chipping and probably some rolling too. I mean, I've rolled S30V. It doesn't mean that every time something happens, it's going to chip. I've gotten rolls more often than I've gotten chips, but I've gotten chips with it, as opposed to like S35. I don't, as far as I can remember and notice, I've never noticed any chipping with S35. But does that mean that S35 is a better steel or that S30 is a worse steel? No. But I'm very curious to see how this goes. So let me readjust the camera real quick. Nose is itchy. Readjust you guys real quick. I'm just going to pull the knives off, and then we'll be able to see what happens. So forgive me there. Here we go. So we can see the stone. First off, I'm going to do is I'm going to use the Paramilitary 2 in S30V. What my plan is I'm going to do 3 strikes. I'm not going to do like just a dropping down on it. I'm going to use a little bit of force, but I'm going to try and use the same amount of force for all 3. I understand it's not scientific. I don't have anything to measure the weight of my arm while pushing down, but I will try to do it as much as possible and keep this test as unbiased as possible because I love both steels equally, so I will not be happy or sad if one does better than the other. So here we go. Oh, it's just tough. I just don't want to do it, but I have to. I'm not going to cry, though. So much sharpening to do this weekend. Alright, so using the back half of the blade. So we'll do 1, 2, 3. Let's see what happened. Alright, so we'll set this one aside. Now, the S30V on the Benchmade Freak. So 3 hits. Oh man. Oh, that hurts so much doing it. Alright. Now, we are going to do Sorry, just every time I do it, the vibration, I'm trying not to knock you guys over. See if I can steady you guys with my other hand. So now we're going to do the code 4 by Cold Steel in S30v. So, ooh, that was a good one. Alright. Alright, so let's move this out of the way. Now this is the one I'm really curious about, is doing the metal, how that's going to do. Just set these aside. Here we go, this is the side with the better corner. So we'll do it in the same order. We'll do Spyderco, benchmade, then Cold Steel. So now we're going to use the front. We're going to use the front portion of the blade, so then we can, at least differentiate when we look at it. All right. Oh God. Ooh. Oh my God. All right. So now, benchmade S30v, using front half. Haven't really looked, just feeling with my thumb. So definitely feeling damage. We'll take a look in a minute. We'll see. Might have to do the test again using more force. Alright, so code 4 by Cold Steel, S35VN, front portion of the blade. Oh man. Oh God, this hurts. Alright. Here we go. So now I'm just taking a quick look. It's really tough to tell. I really just see more rolling than anything. Not really noticing any chipping when it comes to where I came in contact with the stones. Here we go. I'll try to hold these like this. Jesus, I'm trying to get this to... Alright. So I'll see how to really put these in my other hand. Oh, how am I going to do this? Oh, I should have practiced this. I don't know how well that's going to show up. We'll just do one at a time. So, okay. So we can see a little bit, this is where the stone made contact. Now I'm just going to wipe it off. A lot of that is just dust from the stone. I can kind of see a little bit on the phone, the camera. You know what? I think we just have ever so minor chipping on the S30V on the Spyderco. So we'll just, again, let's wipe it off so we can see better. Trying to like catch the light with it. I'm just noting, it's funny, I actually don't notice any real oh, yeah, I do. Alright, so if you look at it from the side, I'm trying to put my finger where it is. See, it's really showing up. But there is actually some chipping here. It's actually a little there, but the chipping seems to be a bit more on the benchmade versus the Spyderco. But the S35VN actually doesn't even look like it chipped. Definitely have some rolling on the S35VN. You can kind of see it's just above where my finger is. Alright, so yeah, guys, I'm sorry. I promise for doing this in the future, I will try to work on better ways to actually show you guys, so it's not just, oh, you have to take my word for it, and, it's like, well, we can't really see, so you can just say anything you want. So until I can figure that out, I am sorry. I promise, like I said, I love both steels and all three of the knives. I want them all to do well. Adjust that a bit. But I'm not, here to blow smoke up anybody's ass. The whole point of this channel for me, I mean, of course, yes, this is all my opinion and stuff, but with stuff that, trying to demonstrate, to be as close to fact as possible. But I'm going to mess around. Maybe I can mess around with the zoom. I'll practice this offhand and then, see how well I can duplicate it for when I do future videos of this. But I think I do want to try this again using more force. It actually looks like the stone did more damage than the metal did. Have a little bit of rolling where I hit the stone, where I hit the metal versus the stone, but there's more chipping. So actually, yeah. So it looks like there's fewer chips where I hit the stone, but they're a little bit bigger. But there's more chips from where I hit the metal, but they're smaller. Let's see how But the chipping is definitely much less significant on the Spyderco. Now, again, I really do want to emphasize, I'm not saying Spyderco or benchmade one's better or worse than the other. I absolutely love both knife companies. Just they treat the blades a little different during that process. I mean, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I am a slut for Spyderco and benchmade. I have no shame. I love both of them. This is just kind of to pit them against each other in that sense of, what is different with them. But I think, like I had said, from just, stuff I have seen and read, but also heard about, with the S30, at least with Spyderco, they do it a little bit softer. I know that's a thing too with their VG10. Generally it's a little bit softer. Got other VG10 blades that I've sharpened as opposed to my Delica and stuff like that has definitely taken a little bit more to sharpen. Not so much. Not that it takes more effort, but just would take a little bit longer. And I'm talking longer, maybe an extra couple minutes. But we'll keep their edge a little bit longer than the VG10 from Spyderco. For example, I have a Kaiser Big Lighter in VG10, and also, actually, especially, I have a couple of the Falknevens are in VG10, and they're rated up to 59, where I think Spyderco's is, I don't know, at least in that 57, 58 range. It could be lower. I know it's not above that. I know at least it's not above 58. And I mean, it's even saying something too, with the more pronounced convex grinds on the, God, I'm totally drawing a blank, the Falknevens. They definitely seem to hold their edge a little bit longer. And, obviously, the grinds doesn't really have that much effect on, the sharpness themselves, just more the, I don't know if you want to call it the perceived sharpness. Just the way it's ground won't make it seem or appear sharper or less sharp. It's just obviously, a flat grind with the V edge is going to slice a little bit easier through certain things than, a rounded edge, if you will, like a rounded, the convex. I mean, I love convex grinds. I'm not trashing them, just saying. But just as sake of example. But I do want to just bring you guys around again real quick. I do want to use more force, and we'll see how that in turn does. Because I have the metal out, we can do the metal first. So we'll do the same thing and try and do it in the same order. I'm going to hold you guys in place. So, there we go. So you don't move around. Oh, man. Oh, wow. God, I don't even want to look. I'm going to wait till the end. I don't want to see it now. Okay, we'll do it. And then benchmade. Oh, my God. No, I'm not going to look till I'm done. Sorry, guys. It's very painful for me. Alright, S30v in now. go. Alright. Now let's do the stone. Now we'll be going the back half of the blade. We'll just keep doing the same order. So Spyderco S30v Paramilitary 2. I'm actually like closing my eyes when I do it. Oop, do the benchmade first. Alright. You can actually hear pieces of the stone flying out. There's pieces of metal. I don't even want to think about it. Here we go. So finally, we have the S30v in Cold Steel Code 4. And we just did the benchmade freak. S30v, S30v, and this is the S35VN Cold Steel Code 4. Oh my god. Alright, I might have just botched the test. The knife just dropped out of my hand. Let me grab that quick, guys. I'm sorry. But I did see how it fell, and it fell on the back of the knife. Oh. So, it doesn't appear that the edge came in contact with anything. Because it did fall on a concrete floor, but it fell on cardboard, and it fell downwards. Alright, and we just have one hit left to make it the final 3. Alright. That is enough of that. Definitely got my day tomorrow worked out for me. Alright. Take another look. We'll do conclusions, and then we'll wrap up the video. Now, we're definitely going to be hitting a half hour here. I guess that's normal, I guess, at this point with my channel. Alright, so, first, Paramilitary 2. Alright. Magnifying glass. Alright. And maybe tell. So from looking at this, actually it's not even really helping right now. The stone damage honestly looks about the same. I'm just feeling more rolling from doing the stone, but also the stone did have a little bit of give. The edges were going into the stone a bit, where the metal, they were just bouncing off. Yeah, like this portion here on the blade looks like little tiny serrations. Oh, God, I don't even want to know what the benchmade's going to look like. We'll do that one last. Alright, so here on the S35, definitely about the same with the stone. I mean, of course, there's more damage because I'd use more force, but it's nothing super significant. Alright, this is a little bit different. We actually have some pretty decent chipping on the S35. The S35 actually has more chipping on it than the S30 from Spyderco. So now I am really curious to see the S30 from Benchmade. So before we even look at... Alright, so we definitely have more chipping on the Benchmade from hitting the stone. Nothing super significant, but once we get up to where we came in contact with the metal, I mean, this should show up on camera now. It's pretty significant. Oh, jeez. It is pretty significant. I can really see. Oh, there we go. There we go. So you can see that chipping there. And this is how we're looking from where the stone made contact. So now I'll try and show you guys here. So this is the S35. So you can see we definitely have some good chipping there. Not as much as the Benchmade, the S30. But you can see we do have a little bit of chipping there in the back from where we made contact with the stone. Not as... Let's see, we'll look at the Benchmade again. Yeah, to me it looks like just as bad and maybe even a little bit worse on this S35 from the stone. Let's see what we can show up here. Well, I feel like every time I look at this, it looks worse. Maybe just because of the 3. This one's my favorite. This is like my favorite knife. One of my favorite folders. But yeah, so this is from the stone where we made contact. So you can definitely see there is some chipping there. But once we get up to here... Ooh, yeah, see like the little saw teeth. Oh man, it's definitely going to be some work. That's alright. Alright. Now what did this prove? That I'm an asshole and just purposefully damaged my edges. And that's all very well and true. But it's to try to prove a point. I don't know if it's to you guys. I don't know if it's to me. Well, it is, I guess, to you guys and also to myself. So what do we basically gather here, information-wise? You know, at least, you know, in my opinion, I mean, tell me what you guys think from what you can see from the video. I know it's not the best quality, but to me, it looks as though the chipping is more significant on the benchmade from the stone and also the metal, as opposed to the s30v on the Spyderco, which still has some pretty good edge damage and definitely has some chipping. Now, of course, there are more variables than just one's harder or softer than the other. Oh, excuse me. A little burp. I mean, could there be other factors? I mean, did I use the exact same amount of force on each strike? I mean, no. I tried my absolute best to keep it as close as possible, but, you know, I'm sure there's probably, you know, a couple pounds of force difference between each strike, let alone each blade. But I try to keep, you know, the same feeling in my arm, the amount of force that I was exerting, as, you know, close as possible. Like I said, it isn't scientific. But now the s30v, see, even this one looks worse every time I look. I think part of it is just the reflections off the edge, just from where it made contact, and just put new scratches into the blade, and then just from, you know, the rolls. I mean, from the metal, it's funny. What it's looking like to me with the s35 is that the chipping seems longer, like the chip length, the length of each chip seems longer on the s35vn versus the s30v, but the chipping seems shallower, if that makes sense. So if you look at, like, and to my eyes, looking at the chipping on the s30v, the chips look to be deeper, but they're not quite as wide. So what does that mean? Well, what I'm thinking it means is that, you know, this definitely will hold up a little bit better. It'll still chip, but having the longer, thinner chips versus the shorter, deeper ones, I don't have to remove as much material on this to remove the chips and rolls. Whereas on both of the s30v blades, I will have to remove more material. You know, I mean, even if I theoretically had one large chip on this that ran the entire length of the apex, it's all of the equal depth down the apex, if that makes sense. Versus, you know, the random chipping that's on the s30 blades, and particularly the benchmade, the chips are a little bit deeper. So even though they're not as wide, they're definitely a little bit deeper. So I'll have to remove more material on both the s30v, both the s30v blades to remove that chipping. You know, so I mean, just that in and of itself, I think, you know, could be something said for s35vn. You know, I definitely think there's something to it, you know, of s35 being less prone to chip. I mean, I don't care what metal it is, anything will chip or crack or roll or anything with enough force or whatever applied to it, you know, but we're trying to figure out how apt are they. But I really like this test. I don't like what it's doing to my knives, but, you know, kind of like, you know, you'll hear a lot of other reviewers say, you know, I'm doing it so you don't have to, and, you know, it's very much true. You know, I now have, Christ, I don't know, like $350 worth of knives are just whacking off of metal and stones. Is it three? Yeah. Well, actually, probably, yeah, because, well, brand new. I mean, these are, of course, not brand new, but, this is 150 new. This is 120 new, so that's what, 270. And then this is about, $80 to $90. So, yeah, you're looking at 350, 360 range. Oh, my God. But let me guys know what you guys think. I mean, what do you guys think of the test? Would you like to see more of them? Hear me cringe and try not to cry while I'm doing this. We can try ZDP 189, M4, S110V, whatever. We can even try some of the lower end steels. I think that would be something to check out. Do something like AUS8 or, 8CR13 or 14 MOV versus whatever, S110V or something. We can do 154 CM versus VG10 versus, I don't know, whatever. But, if you guys have any suggestions, I mean, please, leave it down in the comments. Another good place to really see, like, what I do have for knives, because, of course I haven't shown every single knife I have on this. You can go back through the list and, like, other videos, you can see some of them. But if you do, I always mention the Instagram. But, if you go back from the very beginning, it does go back a couple years. I do have several hundred posts on there now. But all, like, 90% of it is knife or, like, axe, outdoor kind of related. Some stuff about herbs on there. Whatever, it's legal now. It is what it is. But, you guys just, if you would like, check out, follow me on Instagram. You can also seek a, sometimes I'll do heads up on, I'll be doing this video soon or whatever. And then, also another place to get a reminder, because I'll always post the video that I'm doing after I film it and throw it up, so you guys can check out there. But I don't know. I think this was very interesting, what we came to. And I think it was kind of cool, too. I figured out a good way to show you guys with the magnifying glass, because I kind of felt bad when I was first showing you. But I think this was a good test. I definitely would like to do this again with other steels. Maybe we can try S30 versus something else. Good thing I know someone who can sharpen, right? But you guys have a great rest of your night, weekend, whenever you're watching this. I hope you guys are enjoying the videos. Please like, comment, share if you would, subscribe would be awesome. And remember just to keep carving and stay sharp, and let me know what you guys want to see next, or just what you guys think here with the results that we found. Or if you guys really want, we can do the test again. I'll resharpen them and I'll start whacking them off things. If you guys want, if you can think of things that you want to see me bash knives against, or knife edges against, to see what'll happen to them, let me know. Come up with some ideas. But yeah, so you guys, like I said, keep carving, stay sharp, and peace.